Thank you to our 4 sponsors for supporting our podcast. Johnny Russell's Art Caterers and Milltown Pies, Alexander Grace Law, Jez and Lisa's Spoonful of Sweets, and SPE Furnishings. Links to their websites are available in the show notes and on our website. Don't forget to subscribe to get all the latest episodes as soon as they're released.
You know, 16, 17, 18, 19, you're obviously getting some runs in the second team. You're playing, with your muckers and things are developing. The club is looking at, believe it or not, I don't know how we've got to where we are because we relied on you 7 idiots, but we were looking at you lot to try and push on, to get over the likes of Stan and Phil and Lofty and those people going away. And I was like in the middle of it all. What's your memories around that? Can you remember much about?
Yeah, great memories. Shez was brilliant. Shez was captain when I was a young lad in and around that time, I think. And he was brilliant because basically he just said to me, I think I'm going to be captain and I want you to open back with Ted. I do care about performances, but I want you to go and learn off Ted, and I think you can play, and I want you to go up there. So that was great for me. Do you know what I mean? That was fantastic, and it was a real vote of confidence. But owning it back in with Ted Whittle, absolutely. It was just laugh a minute. As a cricketer, the way I viewed myself was, I didn't have the natural ability that others had. I used to try and really apply myself and really graft and bet the most of what I had. Whereas Ted, it just made it look so easy. And I remember once we were playing at home against Aslington. Ted's rocked up, later than everyone else. He's a bit lashed up. I think he's had a good night. And anyway, so we would have liked at middle. And Ted says, "Great, Gav, lad from top end. Was a very good Yorker first up. So just be careful and keep your eye on it." Yeah, Ted. So we're playing pretty high up on the square, and lad runs in from Liverpool Road end. Third ball at game, full in-ducking Yorker. Ted stumps everywhere. Turns up and says, See, Gav, told you. Man, I'm crying, laughing. All these blokes know Ted. They're all laughing. Dave Krupinski, poor Dave Krupinski walks into bat at 3 and he's walking in. Even umpires were laughing. It was just absolutely brilliant. But that, boy, what a player Ted were, especially at second 11. If he fancied it that day, he'd just take people to cleaners. Such a natural player. Learned loads off him.
No, that's interesting that you talk about Ted like that. We keep getting recommendations of who should come on as a guest, and we're even getting some daft ideas about getting players from other clubs on, which obviously is not going to happen. But Ted really was an out and out. I know he played at Rockstall before, but he'd come and play for us. And out and out, do anything for anyone and help and support anyone. That's I'm sure there's more stories about Ted that we need to uncover. But that's fantastic. So he's telling you how to play it and then gets out himself and shouts down at all.
Yeah, he also as well at that time as well started like getting a massive punk wearing into his punk music. Ted and got me and Stanley into punk and that, and took us to see Buzzcocks in Manchester one night with Ted.
Yeah.
Me and Stanley went with Ted and Richard. That's a great tale. He's been lending us CDs as Ted, back in the day where, right, I'm lending you these, but that's one of my favourite. Do not scratch it. You're like, oh, hey, Ted, yeah. So anyway, so you'd listen to it, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And that had been going on for a while. And me and Matt Stanley were right into it. So he says, right, Buzzcocks are playing in Manchester. Do you want to go? Me and Stanley like, yeah, definitely. Only 18-year-old. Never really been out on a night out in Manchester. So he said, basically, we'll go to watch Buzzcocks, and then we'll wait for a few beers after. Winter. So basically, he says, get on X43, get off at Jester's. Remember Jester's? Yeah. Get off at Jester's. I'll have been in there all afternoon with Richard. We'll have a few more in there, then we'll get back on X43, and then we'll sort it. So Ted gets ticket. So me and Matt Stanley, right, happy days. So we're at home, getting ready, doing all this, blah, blah, blah. Then man, we're going to a punk gig. Right? We get on X43. I've got a Lacoste polo shirt on, with hair's gel to bugger it. I've got a pair of nice sort of cords on, nice slip-on black shoes. Stanley's dressed up to nines as well. Like, yeah, you doing it? Thinking we're like, it's good. And gets off bus outside Jester's, because bus stop right across the road, weren't it? Goes into Jester's. Door opens, and it was like that. Everyone, jukebox stops, everyone's went. And Ted went, look at these two dicks. Like, Ted's there with Nick jeans on, with a leather jacket, and so he gave us some right stick. But anyway, we got there, went to the gig, having a few beers, and just before we went into the game, I was really wet behind ears with crack and stuff like that, but I loved it, no problem. But I was so up for the night, and I was standing there as well. And, you know, we're just taking everything in, and we're in this boozer. And it was literally like that, just before we were going in for a few beers. And I was dying for a was. And I said, Ted, where's Jensen here? You know where we came in? I said, yeah. He says, well, as you're coming in, you first right, and then take your first left, it's right there. I went, oh, cheers, Ted, cheers. So I turned around, starts making my way back down to where we come. Excuse me. It must have took me 15 minutes. Gets there. So turn right, opens the door, it was broom cupboard. So I starts laughing, goes back in, and as I went into the main thing where we were, I looked up, and literally where we were stood, if I'd have gone like that, there were 8 big blue neon signs saying "Gents" right behind Ted. But anyway, so we go to the gig, as a right good do at Buzzcocks, as you'd expect, Jez, brilliant, really good night, proper laugh. And then we go for a pint after in Manchester. And he says, "Wait, I'm going to take you to Rock World and Deansgate. Do you know it?" Me and Stan like, no. Right, so we're queuing up. Me and Stanley looking around thinking, it looks a bit ropey in here, like that, you know, the clientele don't look right swift. And anyway, so we get to the front, and Bounce says, puts his arm across me and Stanley. "Excuse me, lad, so we think he's going to ideas. So we're ready to get his passports out Friday." He says, "Are you doing it right, Gaff?" Says, yeah, we're with them two there. Says, "Well, watch you don't get interfered with in here." And let us in. You say like that.
I can just picture you, Gav, with your hair gel down. You'll have some sort of Lacoste aftershave on, your T-shirt with your polo neck buttoned up and your fancy clothes.
Absolutely, mate. Honestly, bloody hell. Oh, brilliant. But great night, though. And Ted was superb. Looked after us all night. Brilliant. You know what I mean? Just a top bloke. Absolute top bloke.
It really is a great character, a great man. Dude, during that time, were you getting in the first team-ish then with Charlie?
No.
When you were
a bit later. It was 2000 before I got in first team. So all sort of back in the 90s, we were playing it seconds together.
Yeah.
Me and Gav and Matt Stanier and Marquis and Charlie when he were up and down for first team, and Johnny when he were up and down for first team, because they didn't play in first team every week. No. Johnny and Charlie at that stage, they were up and down. So there'd be times when the full 6 of us were together in seconds.
Yeah.
We were getting ideas above the station at that stage. You know, we were thinking we were the big boys, and we weren't. It can't have been easy captaining that side at that stage. I think it might have been Pete Gaynor who were doing it, and we were running amok, really. We were doing all right cricket wise, but it was all the other stuff that goes with it that can't have been easy.
The thing I remember, Joe, you know, I mean, we didn't win many games, but when we did win, boy, did we have a time, and did we enjoy it? Because we were all pals together, weren't we?
But do you not think we got that from this lot, though, Gav?
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely, yeah, 100%.
That was the culture of the club, weren't it? You know, I'm not saying
100%.
We were Mickey Mouse cricketers by any stretch. We had some good players, but the club, the kind of the culture the whole club was at that stage. You know, when you do well, you celebrate it, because we don't do well every week. So if it does go our way, we're going to make sure we enjoy it. That was that kind of was how it felt all the way through, really.
Sure, yeah, we were fully paid up members.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's good that you say that, Duke, you know, and the people who were, you know, just above you and senior to you had got it from people before them, and it is a case of so much of a let's enjoy success together. But when things aren't going great, and I know it's all right, you know, now that things are going very well, but it's still a good mantra to hold together when things aren't going so well. You've got to stick together. You know, and if it's over a pint or if it's conversation or over a serious chat about something, then you've got to do it. And I'm just looking at some of the scorecards there for going back that far. There is, you know, some good sides there and some good young cricketers who gave their all.
That's it. I mean, you know, I missed a cricketer out there as well. You know, Dave Worley missed in that. You know, real cricketer, especially at second 11. You know, hell of a bat at second 11 standard. You know, and just some good cricket, just some really good cricketers in the side, Jez. You know, and you're thinking, you know, I need to shat myself if I'm going to, you know, play ahead of these or play with these at any length of time.
Yeah, I mean, I've just tapped on one here. You know, you're right. Ted was in there. yourself, Matt Stanley, Dave Worley, Igers, Matt Marquis, Paul Stanley, Peter Gain, who were probably captain, Chris Aston, a good player.
Good cricketer.
Yeah, Sam Trickett, and then I think it was Dave Fisher, weren't it? He's in there as a D Fisher.
Yeah, Dave Fisher, yeah.
You must have been up in the first team there. So you're establishing yourself in there, Gav, and you are, it's not a criticism of you, this, but you are a very modest type of guy. You just do your job, you'll get on with it, you think about how you can do it better. But, within this podcast, we'd like to get out with you, the good games that you had when you had good scores and you came out, you were really chuffed with yourself. What are your memories around scores in the second team and, victories and playing with your mates and having good days?
So the first one, this will be an easy section, this is, because there aren't many. But to be honest with you, the first one, probably with 2000, Colne away, Benny, when you got 100. So
thanks for bringing that up, Gav. Thanks for bringing that up.
It's about you, Gav, this.
I'd have been 21, and up to that point, I'd done all right. I'd had a second team 50, but I hadn't had as many as I liked. And, going out and having a beer and stuff like that, and then, perhaps getting left out at seconds and stuff like that. And by that time, just before that game, and actually the thirds had played on the Saturday, and I was actually in the thirds, and I weren't in any it whatsoever, and I got 30 odd opening up. And I remember this clearly because these were kind of lads that we had playing for us. And the game was Sunday at Colne away.
Okay.
And Jimmy Browley had taken my shop in second team. And Jimmy Browley, Tommy's older brother, great lad, and not shy of ability either. He was a really good lad. And for whatever reason, I can't remember, but he couldn't play. And he texted me on the morning. I got right. He said, "Can you play? I'll down as reserve or whatever." Absolutely, of course I can. Of course I'll play. And he texted me, Jimmy Browley, saying, "Gav, I've heard you playing. Best of luck, mate." And I thought, "Oh, that's really nice. That's brilliant." Yeah. And anyway, they're back first and got 260 odd. And you're thinking, "Bloody hell, we're staring down barrel here." And in reply, we were 7 for 3. So you're thinking, right, real dudes, we fagged it to every part of Colne, and we're going to be home before past. And then Raz Esketh and Chris Astin settled in, and they put quite a few on. Raz Esketh Chris got a few, and then me and Benny come together, and so was Owen, and I got 50 odd not out, and Benny got 100, and I do remember that quite clearly because it sort of made me think to myself, you know what? I won't say, I don't want to swear, but I won't say it was shit or butts. But if I'd have bombed again then, who knows when I'm going to play it again? Then I'm 22 year after. Who knows? Whatever. Quite a bit of a turnaround. I proved a bit to myself there. And for a good, I'd say probably 15 overs. I think we chased easily 7 and over, 8 and over, something like that. And we ran them unbelievably. Looking at us now, 2 portly lads, but we ran ragged, and we did really well. And then from then on in, I proved something to myself a little bit, and then a couple of weeks later, I got 80 odd not out at Ake. I think a bit of a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I can play, I can do this. But looking back retrospectively, I wish I'd have kicked on from that then. But I didn't, you know what I mean? And that's look, it is what it is. I had a great ride, but that game there, and then the Ake the week later, in a couple of weeks there, I proved to myself, I can play at this level. I can then look, right, get established at this level now, get a place inside, and then go again. Fortunately, that's not happened.
No, that's brilliant, and that's typical you, Gav, that you analyse yourself and you work out that you can get that, as being a top-class second-team player, and a lad who can come in the first and do a job when required. Joe, Martin, anything you want to bring up?
I found that bit really interesting then, Gav. I found it all interesting, but that bit in particular, because I only ever played one game with you whilst you were playing. But obviously I had more time with you when you were the second team manager. And seeing that you were quite an unconfident cricketer, you didn't really believe in yourself, is the complete opposite of what you were like as a manager, trying to make sure that we had the confidence to be as good as we could be. And I find it amazing that you were sort of able to give us the confidence to perform. As we were 14 and 15-year-old kids, not really knowing anything, but seeing, when you were the manager and seeing what we could do. But you didn't have, it seems like you didn't have that confidence up until a little bit later.
Well, it were, to be honest with you, Joe, it were the sport I'd played, as a kid at football, sort of being big-headed or anything like that, but it all came pretty naturally, did that. And I was comfortable at that, and I was confident at that. And I didn't really, I had to work hard, and I did work hard when I was growing up. But what I mean is, I enjoyed it, but I also enjoyed it because I was all right at it. But there was a difference between football and cricket for me. I loved cricket, and I wasn't a natural at cricket, and that made me want it even more. And cricket, as we all know, you lads know better than me because you're better players than me. But as a bat, you get one chance, and you have to wait all week to do it again. And when you're going, when you're the type of player of an hour, and I'm not fishing for compliment, one couple of weeks can turn into a long month. And especially when, you have to, I had to net Tuesday and Thursday. I had to have a good week's of netting to give myself a bit of confidence to think, I'm prepared for it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'd have probably gone out on Friday night and had a skinful. But I knew that I'd done the prep during the week. I knew I'd had a couple of good nets, because that's another good thing. I wonder what you'd say about this, Benny, as well. It was brilliant being I know you were an all-rounder, Joe, but as a batter, you couldn't wish to have a better net, because if you were lucky enough, and especially when you were getting older, you did. But you'd be batted against you, Matt, Pro, Paul Stanley, good bowlers. Do you know what I mean? And you're thinking, this is a great net, is it? And I'd be thinking, if I don't get out here, or whatever, I'll be all right. And I'll be, I'll look all right to these chaps here, you know what I mean? I can get Shields out, or this, and this, blah, blah, blah. And that's why, honestly, I used to look at Tuesday and Thursday nights, and I really used to analyse it like that. And it probably didn't, I tried to make it not look like that. But in my head, that's what I was doing. I really were, because I wanted it that much. Do you know what I mean? I really did. Yeah. And I probably did a decent job of disguising that. But, deep down, Benny, that. We used to talk loads about it. And we wanted it loads. And we really did want to play,
Yeah, that's interesting, that, Gav, because I do remember it, and when you were young kids, I'd really enjoy bowling at you, because you would properly be in serious. You wouldn't start to, sometimes, with all respect, Charlie would just go mentally, just try and smash everything out of the ground, or, Dooch was different to bowl like, he was flat back, trying to hit you over your head. But I do remember bowling to you, Gav, that, it was a dead, right, we're going to have 20 minutes here, and it's a game, it's a competition now. We're competing against each other. And I think, Joe Martin, going back to what you were saying there, Gav is very good at that, trying to impart his knowledge, or trying to develop people and just be the right person there when things are going bad or when they're going good, whereas he possibly didn't do it enough in his own career, really, to decide how, right, I'm going to be selfish and do this different. I think I found the game that where you got 80 odd Aki away, was it?
Yeah. Me and Paul Stanley put a few on.
Yeah, that's right. I think you were standing looking at that, put 70 odd on. Paul Stanley got 37. You ended up 83 and won quite easily. So yeah, great memories. Right, Gav, let's just move on to what your aspirations were. And I can only tell you how I saw you and what you felt like in the first team. You always felt like a really good first team squad player, which I never had an issue of you being in the first team and playing in the first team with us. And what were your perception of how that period went? When you were playing your best cricket, you were getting picked for the first team on merit in big games. How did you feel that went through those?
Honestly, I realised very quickly that I were out of my depth, and I just wanted to ride that roller coaster, mate. I know it's a cheesy saying, but it's true. And I just thought, look, I'm going to get found out eventually. I'm just going to enjoy it for as long as I can, because I could not believe. I mean, don't get me wrong. I had come on a little bit. And I felt as though in certain games, I could do a job. Walking out, not only just playing first team cricket, but I was fortunate enough to open the batting. Now, to open the batting for us first 11, you're honoured to do that. There are some great players who've done that in the past, and they really are. Just as I remember, the likes of Iggy and Stan, and then Nicky, and it's a real, you're proud to do that, to walk out. When I walked out and opened batting, I remember opening batting at Burnley with Stan. I was proud as punch. Honestly, walking out with badge on your chest, walking out, I thought this is great. But I remember putting 50 on with Stan actually for the first wicket at Burnley. He got 49. No, he didn't. But
and then right
all singles. But stuff like that. Walking out with Nicky at home, just so proud. But listen, my honest answer is I loved every minute of it, but I knew deep down I weren't good enough. And I knew that sooner or later I'd get found out and I'd go back to second 11. And I had, Jez, seriously, mate, I had no problems with that, no qualms with it at all.
No.
I loved being a part of it. I'd have done third man final, like, no problem.
Yeah.
And I did.
Yeah, and you did, you that did come across. You were very much, look, I'm here to do a job, I will do the job. But a team isn't about 11 Stans or 11 Joe Martins. It's about, what that person can do on that day for that team, and it's a sweeping statement you saying, I know I could get found out, I wasn't good enough, but you did jobs for the club and you scored runs, at times and contributed to the dressing room, etc.
I also think, Gav, that, sorry, Jez, I also think that it's a culture shock, innit, when you first go up to the first team, when you've not been in the first team all long. At the start, I remember thinking, I'm way out of my depth here. These players are far better than I am, and they're far better than the players that I've had any sort of success against before. But I do think that you do gradually get used to it. You never conquer it because we're not that good, but eventually, if you stick it out for long enough, you do bring yourself up a little bit to their level, and you do realise that you have got the ability to get a little bit nearer to them, and it's not that big of a gap.
Yeah.
Whether you ever gave yourself that chance or not in your own head, who knows?
Yeah.
No, it's a good point. Is that, Dooch, and who really cares now, because Gav's really had a great time. He's, we're still all together. It doesn't really matter. But just going back to your point there, Dooch, and I'm not suggesting you did this or I did it or Joe Martin's doing it, but sometimes it's having the ability to blag it. You get in there, you think, how on earth am I in this team with this person, and that I'm playing against these sorts of people. Some people have the ability to go out, the chest stuck out, and they look like they belong. When underneath, they know that they don't belong. They're not good enough. But you get away with it because you front it out, really. You
Absolutely.
just front things out. And I'm not saying you didn't have that, Gavin. I'm not saying that Joe Beneducci had it or I had it. But it's just, there's fine lines between it all. You mentioned there about opening the batting with Stan and getting those, and other games you've played in. Memorable games, memorable stories within a game, maybe in the first team. What comes to mind around that?
First team?
Yeah.
I can't remember who Franklin Rose was playing for, but we were playing at home.
Enfield.
He was sub-throwing. I remember being back in middle order. I remember thinking, sat on my back. And it weren't a quick wicket, obviously, because we were at home. But a bit damp and what have you. And he's bowling at Blaise, and he's beat Blaise 3 times out, 3 outside off stump, and I'm just sat there. And there's a few on. And everyone's looking at you, aren't they? Everyone's watching. And I'm sat in the back thinking, what am I doing here? This is Joe off, like laughing, thinking, what am I supposed to do here? Do you know what I mean? He's making, he's best player I've ever seen. 22 yards away, you can get a bat on him. But then, again, the batting with Blaise over at Todmorden when they had Ibrali and Pandey. And then he used to bowl in there for like a million overs every weekend. But for lads like me, we always work that. I play about 4 shots before the ball come to me. Like for example, I think I might have got teams away against them. And I'm like using back of my back, every edge at back, blah blah blah. I finally gets a leg bar at the other end. Blaise is like alley balls just there must have been about that much more air on it. Blaise comes down and just poof, hits him into the skull. I walked over, shot Blaise. And then I walked back to the town and thought, get a grip, Shields. You just walked down wicket and gone, shot Blaise. Is it Blaise who's going to go? Yeah, cheers, Gav. You know what I mean? Shouldn't be dick, you know what I mean? But I mean, he wants, he's a lovely bloke in it, but I was like, Shields, get a grip, do you know what I mean? Yeah. But no, like I said, all of it were great moments, just first team. And my overriding memory is I was just ever so proud of myself that I got there, whether it were by, I think I earned my right to get in there, and Stan helped me do that. I mean, I think it was the start of 2002. Stan was coming back from his knee injury, and I really benefited from batting with him in the second 11. And he scored some runs, and I scored some runs as well. And I had a really strong start to the season. And that's when I, got into second, first team. So, I'd like to think that I earned the right to get there. And then lads, I'm just ever so proud. You know, I've got my number. You know, and I'm just really proud. You know, to represent the club. You know, because first and foremost, we're all fans, aren't we?
Yeah.
You know, and I've been lucky enough to play at first team and represent the club.
Yeah, that's a great point that you make there, and we've all been there. You know, people who've played it. You know, it doesn't matter first team, whatever. But when you stand there and you look at the opposition's pro or even a good amateur, how on earth? What am I going to do against this? You know, we've listened to Chris Scott about when he faced, I think it was Wayne Daniels, and you listen to, you know, other podcasts where people are looking at the other end and thinking, why am I even on the same field as them? You know, that can never be taken away from any of us. Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. It really is the good memories. Anything from you two before I just go through a few stats I've got before we go on to some of the questions we've got, Joe?
I mean, I imagine we'll talk about when Gav was manager of the team, and the one game I played with Gav, when I found out that Gav was going to be playing, I was very excited. And the night before, I cleaned my batting pads with Sif to make sure they were white, so then they weren't dirty. So Gav could see.
Hang on. Let's just get this right. So you're really excited because you're playing in a team that Gav's the manager of?
No, that Gav was playing him.
Oh, he's actually playing, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I played one game with him.
Excitement got the better of you, so you clean your pads with Sif.
Yep, Sif bathroom cleaner.
Right, that's right. Joe, you never cease to amaze me. So go on, yeah.
And it was genuinely incredible because I don't know if Gav it was incredible. It really was. I was 12, I think. I'm very little now, but I was even smaller then.
You're tiny top, weren't you?
Yeah, I was tiny. And it were a really wet day. The wicket was horrendous.
East Lancs, weren't it?
Yeah, East Lancs away. And the wicket was terrible. I think we bowled them out for maybe 100, 120.
Not that many, were it?
No. But 120 on there were quite a tough score, I think, Gav, weren't it? It wasn't easy to play on. Whoever I was opening with was out early, and Gav walks out. And as soon as Gav walked out, I had to kind of pump my chest out a little bit to show that I could sort of do it. And it was really hard because every ball was spitting, and it was like slamming me on my chest or going like hitting on my head. And Gav just walked me through the whole innings. And I think we must have put on 100, Gav. I think
you did. Yeah, I genuinely do remember the game. And like I say, it was more difficult for you, Joe, because you were such a small lad. And when it was spitting off a length, it written, your gloves right in front of you, And but you showed some stones that day, pal. You really did. And like you say, we if we brought the back of that really, and I got out just before the end. I remember the game because that's actually the last game I ever played.
Is it really? Because and it was.
So I remember it.
I'd never batted with somebody that was able to, after every single ball, sort of tell me what not sort of tell me what I should be doing, but walking down and telling well played, wait for the bad ball, don't go after it, just keep playing as you are doing. And it gave me so much confidence going into the next game. And I think I got 50 that game, and then the game after I got 100 the game after. And through that I was still trying to remember what Gav were telling me. Making sure that just play every ball as you see it, and it had a really, really important effect on my batting and how I approach games. And as I say, it was only it was one game, but as a kid, it really did make a massive difference to.
Oh well, that's great, pal. Yeah, and I remember it. And yeah, showed some guts that day, and you didn't toss it off or bottle it, and we broke the back of it and we won the game, and you got a red inker, the red ink panther. So yeah, job's a good one.
I mean, all credit, good on you, Joe Martin, for bringing that up. But I think that just, that sums you up, Gav. That you give a lot of your experience out to people, and people really do appreciate it, as much as you might think they don't do. I'm going to go on to Dooch. Is there anything you want to add before I go out of 2 points?
Yeah, I'm just going to say it also sums Joe up that he has a happy knack of briefly mentioning the guest's achievement before saying, and I got 50 and I got 100. He manages to do that quite frequently. It's a skill. I wanted to mention a game that Gav will not want to talk about because we've discussed it a million times, but it was the Cup semi-final, which obviously me and you played in, Jez, and Gav played in. I know he don't like talking about it, but I think we can't have him on without bringing it up. So I think we should get into that a little bit.
I agree 100%, and that was one of my 2 points, and I've got it up here. So I agree with it. Joe Martin, you were probably busy putting your crushed green velvet jacket on, standing in the stand at church, deciding whether you're going to be Michael Ball or Frank Sinatra at the time. 23rd of June 2002, Gav. One of my personal, biggest memories. Not all good, but some really good memories of the build up to that. I was convinced that we were going to win the cup that year. Yeah. A lot more convinced in 2004. We had the right blend. The pro wasn't part of us as such, but he was a proper match winner, Jack Rudolph. I was convinced he was the type of bloke that would do it on the day, and we would all chip in because we would really stick in. You look at that side there. If we were in the trenches, there's probably 10 people in that 11 that you'd want in the trenches with you. So I was really comfortable with it. I was happy we were going to do it. Just give us your memory of it, Gav, from, when we went to the ground and how things went. And we know you don't like talking about this, but I think it's important that you give your version of what went on and how it went and how well you played, I'll say, at the start of this. And so you tell us what your memories are of that.
The build up to it, really, I remember sort of the week before or something, Matt had a barbecue round at his dinner, and we all went round and we were all talking about it. And, there's a mixture of nerves and excitement because it was a huge game. Because we're that good now, we play huge games every year. But back then we didn't, did we really? If we're being honest, gents, we didn't. And
no.
But I was so excited and nervous. But like you, Jez, I just thought, at the end of the day, they're a good side. But so, we're all right on the day. We have a top class pro who, if he fancies it, there ain't anyone who could bowl at him on that side. No qualms about that. Like Benny says, we've talked about it a lot, and I'll be perfectly honest with you, mate. I prefer days where I got 20 or I got 5 and we won. The only pleasing thing were it was the biggest game of cricket I'd ever played in, and personally I prefer. But it was a horrific day, and you don't play team sports for yourself and stuff like that. You play to win with your mates, and it was one of the worst days ever. There were that many people who rocked up, and you wanted to win it. We wanted to do well, and I don't know what happened, but we just didn't. We got pro'd, basically, ultimately pro'd. And at half time, I remember Jack saying, look, do we think we can win it or not? Because if we don't, well then, what's the point of us being here now?
Yeah.
And we're all like, yeah, of course we can win it. And it didn't go well, did it? Let's be honest. God's honest truth. When I went out to bat, I was just thinking, let's just do the best I can here. The cup competitions helped me because, the best 2 bowlers could bowl all the way through, if I'm being perfectly honest. So tactically, I knew that I could, perhaps survive, and see perhaps 1 or 2 spells out and then go to town, or not go to town, but, attack other bowlers. There was a short boundary, to my leg side. So, I think I played a few slog sweeps, which I'd never played before in my life. But I just wanted to do the best I could. Yeah. And for me, it went all right. But I took no solace in that. And what made it even worse were, praying to God that the second team were playing in the semi-final that day as well. And I was hoping to God that, because it looked like at one point they were going to win it. And if you remember, we all came back and they got beat as well. Yeah. And it was one of the crappiest nights ever. We just all had a few beers and it was just, it was rubbish, and it is what it is. I don't take any sort of comfort in the fact that I did all right at all. That's not what it's about.
Well, absolutely not. I've got my own views, and it's probably because I'm quite a bit older than you lot as the way I think about things now. What's your thoughts about, first of all, what Gav says, Duke? How do you feel about that game now?
Well, I agree with him about the game because it was the biggest game that we played in comfortably, and it was kind of felt like it was the biggest game that we were ever going to play in as well, because we played at Lowerhouse all of our lives. Although Gav did used to play for Nelson, as he mentioned, but I'd been a wonky, so I'd only known Lowerhouse, and when you grow up at Lowerhouse, you kind of don't really expect to play in finals and semi-finals, or that's how it felt at the time. So the fact that we were playing in a semi-final and we got so heavily stuffed out of sight that it felt like the end of the world, really. It felt like, that was as high as we were ever going to get, a semi-final at Church. That was going to be it for us. But I do disagree with him about his own performance. I'll tell you why. A lot of people go through an entire career without winning anything and without the team doing anything good whatsoever. And in those teams, like we said earlier at Lowerhouse, if you get a little glint of success in a season, you beat a team that you're not supposed to beat or whatever, you have to maximise that. And on that day, Gav's 60 odd was that little achievement in the gloom. And you look at the card. They got 325 in a batting fist against us, and there was still 2 overs left. We bowled them out. I forgot about that. We could have got 360. And we, at one stage, were 54 for 8 chasing.
Yeah.
325. So the fact that we didn't get anywhere near winning, and we never won, and we were never going to win, but the fact that we weren't 65 all out, and the back end of the game just gave us a little ray of sunshine, was better than what would have happened if Gav had got a duck.
Yeah. Here.
And he got a collection. And he mentioned we all had a load of beer back at club afterwards to drown our sorrows. It Ronnie's collection.
Yeah, he paid for it all. Yeah. And I mean that. So Dooch is getting to the getting more to the twilight years then than Gavy's, because that's exactly how I feel. As it's not about what happened on the day. Yeah, we were absolutely gutted. And I mean, I can see Joe Martin listening with interest. It was, I can't build it up enough what the build up to that game was before it. Jack Rudolph was an outstanding match, absolutely outstanding. What happened was we turned up and they basically flipped a coin and decided if this lands, the way they'd pitched the actual wicket, if it lands heads and we win the toss, we're going to win the game. If it lands tails and we lose the toss, Jack Rudolph could quite easily done of what Higgs did. It was just a complete, I won't use the word farce because it did spoil it, but it was just, it certainly wasn't cheating, but it just spoiled the occasion, because once someone got in, a pro, a left-hander, it was a chip into people's gardens, and that's what Higgs did. Just completely smashed him out of the game. But I think I'm not deluding myself, Dooch, I don't think, but Jack could have done that.
Of course he could, yeah, he could. But obviously, the chances of him doing it when we fagged 325 at first innings, we're all demoralised, is significantly lower.
Yeah. Batting second, you've very little chance of chasing that. But that's what it was all about, Joe Martin. They took a massive gamble on that we will win the toss, we'll bat for this, and what happened. So all credit to their plan, but it was only on a toss of a coin.
And I'm really interested in the kind of build-up to that game, because obviously it had been, no historian, I guess, but it must have been 30 years since... Well, no, 30 years from that point, from when they last played in the final. 82, was it?
Yeah.
20 years. Sorry. Yeah, sorry, 20 years. Terrible math. And obviously, I don't think anybody... Did you play in that final, Jez?
No. Hey, you're laughing, Dooch. I should have played.
Yeah, because you made your debut in 81, didn't you?
Yeah, 1980.
Yeah. So that was a valid question, Dooch.
Okay.
All it was, the reason I didn't play is because I didn't have a car and Rusty did.
But so nobody had played in anything like that before. What was it like maybe the week before? What?
Well, as I say, Matt was captain, and we had a barbecue round at his house, didn't he? And we all went round, and we had a really good day. And we had a few shandies, one or two cheeseburgers, shall we say. And we had a very good laugh. But we talked about it, and like I say, there were, in my mind, Jez and George, they were 50%, nervous excitement, and 50%, let's really get it, let's really go for it, I don't think anyone was scared or anything like that.
And at any point, did you think you were, not after they got 320 odd, but maybe in the build up to the game or, warm up maybe, did you think, what did you think your chances were of winning? Because there was I know we've talked about it before, about 2004, where the kind of attitude and atmosphere was different to 2002. But what were people sort of thinking about whether they could actually win it or not, or whether they thought the semi-final was, that's where they're going to get?
Well, from me, for that season, it was a really damp season. It was quite a damp season, really damp around June. I'm trying to flick through the various games. And we played Church the day before and got beat by Church. But we were, Jacks was obviously a fantastic cricketer. There was the odd issue here and there, but he could clearly get big runs when he wanted. Well, not he could clearly get big runs at the drop of a hat. There was no issue around that. We were all training really hard, with a good side. We weren't carrying anyone really when you look at it. The fact they beat, my only memory of it is the fact when they beat us the day before, I was convinced we're going to stuff these the day after. Jack didn't get any runs, in the league game, and I just convinced that we're going to win. I knew everyone was up for it. I knew everyone had worked really hard for it. And it would I remember bowling and fielding in that first innings thinking, this is a travesty that we're playing on a pitch that is literally, is it 25 metre circle? Is it 25 metres or 20?
25, I think.
Whatever the circle is, there literally was only another 6 foot to the boundary.
Oh, really?
Right at the top end at Church, and it was just a big gamble, and he just one-kneed it consistently into the houses at the top, and he just can't. Did someone drop him upstage?
I don't remember that.
No,
it might have been. I blanked a lot of the detail of that day out. To be honest,
Well, hang on. Did it not go about 1,000,000 miles in air?
I think so, and it landed. Something like that happened.
Yeah.
And then we all looked at each other and thought, this is not going to happen. But then I just knew what a maverick Jacks was, that he could go out there and absolutely match it. But when we were 18 for 2, off, the first 5 or 6 overs, it really wasn't, it wasn't going to happen. But I can't echo enough what Duke says. I forgot all that other stuff. It don't bother me now. Don't keep me awake at night. But I remember our batting with Gav when he got his 50, and it was the best. It's such a great memory. It's such good, memory that, that this lad who works his nuts off, does so well and works so hard at his game, has got this, that no one can ever take it away from him. It doesn't matter what happened. No one can ever take that away from us. So I'm really glad that we talked that through, and hopefully, Gav, you can start sleeping at nights now.
There's never been any problem there, mate, believe you me.
Send Morehouse to save the house.